3 billion. Can everybody hear the billions?
We have to turn on.
Oh gosh. Testing.
Testing, mic 1, 2, 3.
Yeah. Now 1 billion, 2 billion, 3 billion.
5 billion.
Yep. 1 million, 2 million, 5 million. Everybody can hear the millions and billions. Can you all please respond?
Speak up a little bit.
Am I supposed to speak out a little bit?
You can say.
Okay. How's the sound?
Does it sound good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we have the chat? Anybody making some comments on
not
on
really,
Zoom, right?
No, this is on YouTube.
On YouTube?
YouTube
okay.
Live.
Okay, YouTube.
Yes. So
But they can type on YouTube, right?
Yep, there's a chat function underneath.
Okay.
So they can write hi, good morning.
Sure.
So we have good evening.
All right.
From Low
All right,
CB.
guys. Good to see you guys.
Okay.
If you're hearing us, please give us some response. We'd love to hear from you. Type some comments there. I know that you guys are there. I don't know how many you guys are there, but it will be very boring for me if I just talk towards the camera and nothing else. So let us know. Okay.
Greg and a few guys answered. We hear you well. So
okay.
Sounds like the sound is good.
Okay. The sound is a bit soft.
Is it a bit soft? Okay. Some people say they can hear well. So
can you hear me, or you can't hear me, or can't hear Sam, or both of us?
Let's try a little bit closer.
Okay.
Yes, there. And then I'll be a bit closer here.
All right, cool.
I think it's good.
All right, good. Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Hope that everybody is doing good in this hopefully tail end of COVID, and you're enjoying your time at home, making money, and spend quality time with your family. Yes.
Great. Thank you, Lou. Good evening, everybody. So welcome to Endowus Live. We have a very special guest, a very dear friend of mine and a friend of Endowus. And many people know him as Mr. CPF, and we'll explain why today. For those of you who have never seen him before, which is probably very few people. But we have a big crowd from 1M65, so the movement that Lou started and created. So we're very excited that we have a lot of people from that group joining us today. So welcome, 1M65 members. And welcome to everybody, Endowus clients and people who are fans of our content. So thank you for being here, Lou.
Thank you. It's a great honor. And for those people who have come from different channels, my name is Lou. And if you are first time seeing me in person, I'm very happy to be here. I think recently there's quite a big group that came and join our Telegram movement. Welcome you guys, and today I will share exciting stuff with you together with a good friend of mine from Endowus, right, which is a cornerstone of our strategy, one of our corner pillars of our strategy. So this is Sam. He's a great guy, huge wealth of experience in investment, and he'll be sharing with you wonderful stuff that you can really juice him dry with all his ideas and all his knowledge. Okay.
I was scared there for a moment, Lou. I thought you were going to say I have huge wealth, and that ended there. Yeah. That's scary. But so just a quick announcement and housekeeping. So we have this screen down here. You can subscribe to our Endowus live webinar. So please subscribe. There's a lot of good content about not just Endowus, but we have guys from PIMCO talking about fixed income. We have our partners, not just Lou, but Dollars and Cents, Seedly, Woke Salaryman, everybody who's anybody in Singapore have been on our Endowus live webinars. We really value the partnerships and friendships we have here in Singapore in the investment community. We're really trying to change the way investing is done to help people invest and save better to prepare for their financial future. And as Lou highlighted, CPF is such an important cornerstone of our lives here and in building wealth for the future. So we share a lot of good content today. And just a quick plug about next week, we have a very clickbaity title. Somebody, Sheng Shi probably came up with that one. Biden versus Trump, how the US election outcome impacts the financial markets. If Lou, you have views and you can share that with us today as well. So the quick plug, next Thursday, not our regular Wednesday, but Thursday. And then this is the special voucher. So for Lou and fans of Lou and the 1M65 movement, we have a very special voucher for you, $30,000 managed free for 6 months. The code is available on this YouTube description and also the Facebook comment, because we're also live on Facebook. So we're YouTube and Facebook today, as we normally are. And the special voucher, the QR code is here. You can scan it on the video, or you can receive it later. We'll share it with the 1M65 membership Telegram group, which, congratulations, Lou, is fast heading to 10,000 members. Amazing.
Amazing.
It's phenomenal.
I didn't do anything.
That's the most amazing thing,
Yeah.
that is so organic.
Okay.
And I think people really seek and value the advice, the sharing, the community, and it's all authentic. There's no commercial, like, endeavors or anything going on. And
Yeah.
I'd like to, at this point, say once again that Lou and I are just friends. We have a lot of values and purpose that are common. And so we want to do the right thing and help people. But Lou is not compensated by us in any way. There's no ties, there's no ownership, there's no financial payments of any kind, there's no commercial relationship. It's just friends talking about finance and trying to help people save and invest better for their future, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't get a single cent from Endowus. I'm not a shareholder of Endowus. The only thing that I got free from them was Sam bought me a nice char siu rice just now. Okay, char siu fan, and it's really good.
It's the best. It's the best. It's right around the corner on Keong Sai.
Yeah, Keong Saik Street, one of the best. But anyway, that's a distraction. Okay.
Okay, so very quick introduction on Endowus for those members who are not familiar with us. We are an independent company. We struggled to invest ourselves. So this is where everybody started. Lou, us, Seedly, everybody in this community here is people who have struggled to, invest our own money. There's so much pain points in trying to invest money here. And so we, try to work to solve this problem. And one of the key missions we have is that, the biggest generational challenge we face as a society is this lack of retirement adequacy, what's called the global pension shortfall. So imagine a society where 50% of the population, when they reach 65 or 75, do not have enough money saved up to live, a comfortable life that they deserve after working for so many years. That is a horrific idea. There's many countries around the world who are facing these problems, real problems, aging very rapidly and reaching retirement, without the resources to cope. And this is something that obviously Singapore may not face completely because we have CPF, we have other, it's a richer country, so we have some, safety guards. But at the same time, there's so much more we can do to prepare for that future. We can do better as an individual, we can do better as a society. So that's our mission. We really focus on that. And we have a wonderful team that's building the team up. And I'm from the industry. I've been here 26 years, 17 years with Morgan Stanley on the asset management side, where I was the chief investment officer and chief executive officer. I'm now with Endowus, building this wonderful enterprise with a wonderful team, trying to change the way we invest. We want to focus on this fee-only independent model where we do not get paid by anybody else, because the finance service industry is driven by fees and commissions and kickbacks that would not exist anywhere else. So imagine a doctor prescribing a medicine and saying, I'm going to give you this medicine because I own some shares in this company, or I get paid $2,000 for giving you this medicine. You would not trust that doctor. Or you go to Singtel, a company you're familiar with, and you want to buy the new Apple 12, and they say, no, you cannot buy Apple 12, you have to buy a Huawei because Huawei is paying me $2,000. I mean, you would not expect this, or this is not possible in any other industry, but this is exactly what's going on in financial services, especially when you're selling investment products. Everybody from banks to brokers to fund platforms, the bulk of the money of everybody is made by receiving kickback commissions from fund managers and product providers. So we're trying to change the way this is done. And so next slide, Ching-Chi, would be great. So we are the first and only digital advisor for CPF. We've been approved by CPF board, working with the Ministry of Manpower and MAS to make this happen. And we want to provide affordable investments to all Singaporeans for all their source of cash. And we cannot talk about retirement without CPF. So we really focused on trying to solve these problems in multiple ways. With that, I think we can just jump this. And so one thing that I just mentioned was the incentives, right? The alignment of incentives. And I just want to show this chart because next one, is the chart of how the system works right now. This is individual investors paying to the various distributors investment products. Any banks, private banks, FAs, brokers, and fund platforms are all the same. Even iFast has a platform fee, and Dollardex and Perms all talk about zero fees, but 70% of their revenues and almost all of it comes from kickbacks, commissions, that actually investors are paying. They just receive it from the fund managers. So the individual pays the fund manager, and the fund manager pays these distribution guys. So we're going to change this messy business to the next slide, which cleans this up. So we are only paid by you, the client, so that we can do our duty, fiduciary duty, to serve in your best interest. And yeah, so I think the slides are coming back on. Present, yeah. And the fund managers are paid by you at the fund level, and there's no conflict of interest, and we work towards the best solution. I think we can skip some of these slides that we have. These are comparisons that we have shown for an institutional share class PIMCO fund, or the next one, which is the CPF investment, how it's so much cheaper than using a DIY platform or a financial advisor. Or the third one is we've launched the Cash Smart solution, which is how to manage your short-term liquidity. We actually have institutional share class and get a rebate, and we pass on 100% of this trailer fee, kickback commission rebate that we receive from fund managers back to the customer. So we keep not a single cent. We do that because it is the best way, it's the most aligned way to serve the needs of the clients, and we just focus on what we do best, which is advise, independent advice, the best interest of the client. So with that introduction, next slide, Shimshi. In the world of Endowus, your goals are precisely defined, you have a process for achieving your goals, and you have access to experts, strategies, and products to achieve your goals. And we understand that everyone has different needs and circumstances and risk appetites and goals. And so we have launched a new service. There's a video on our YouTube channel on this Fund Smart launch, which was last week. One of the reasons we created this platform, which is an open wealth platform, was specifically to meet the needs of the 1M65 community.
Thank you.
As we all know, Lou pushes the S&P 500.
Yes.
We have an exclusive access to a Vanguard managed passive index fund in S&P 500, also global equities, and we have our advice portfolios. But for 1M65 members who want to access it directly, we had to do it manually. It was very difficult for us. It's costly, but we've built this platform for the 1M65 members. So that's why we're excited to have Lou on and to present this case, and also offer the special voucher to the 1M65 members.
Very good. Very good.
Thank you, Lou.
Okay, thank you.
Your presentation comes next, so we'll move on to the presentation.
Great. Okay. So thanks, Sam. Later in the midst of my talk, I'll ask you a few questions as well.
Sure.
That's part of my little hidden plan.
All right.
Okay. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you. I've done this talk many times. So this is my 87th talk. Okay. The next one will be a lucky number 88. Okay.
Nice.
So I've spoken to many people and spoken many times, and really, I've also progressed from a 1M65 talk. Nowadays, nobody wants to listen about 1M65 anymore. It's such a shame. That's a cornerstone. But more to talk about the 4M65 strategy. And some of you are asking, why Sam? Why Endowus advertise 5M65? Now Lou has some new strategy, right? So I gotta blame Sam for that. But we'll cover a bit of that as well, right? How you can stretch further. But anyway, just to let you know, you can. Most of you all come to me from on a 1M65 Telegram group. But you can also reach out to me in this various place. I have you can reach out to me in a Facebook page and my YouTube channel, which myself and my daughter Kate, who's very entertaining. We'll talk and share more about interesting YouTube ideas. YouTube videos or financial ideas and things like that. A particular one is coming out, which is on real estate. There's a real estate bull run that's coming, and she'll talk a lot about it as well. Last is you can always reach out to me on LinkedIn as well. I usually manage all my startup mentoring and things like that there. Anyway, so today the talk is really on 4M65, how you make millions. Let me stress again, millions, okay, with a CPF. So next slide, please. Okay, my eyes is always there because the slide is there, okay? So let me share with everybody a story. A few years ago, I was in Israel, and I go to Israel quite a bit because I've got some business dealings there. And one day when I arrived in Israel, and most of y'all will probably not been to Israel because it is a country that's very difficult to go in, right? There's tight security and so on. But when I landed in Israel, usually there's quite a lot of pilgrims, religious holidays and things like that. But surprisingly, the day I landed, I was at the airport, there was nobody, right? There was just the custom officers, people with a lot of machine guns, and not a single tourist. I was like, why? You know, it's like, you know, what's going on, right? So I was like, everybody was looking at me like, I was with my colleague, and both of us were walking down the airport towards the custom. Was like, do you have this feeling that everybody's looking at you? It's like, yes. Like, why are we here? You know, the kind of thing. It's not the first time I was there. So anyway, cut a long story short is that while clearing the custom, I asked them, why is there nobody? He said, have you read the news? Okay. So Israel enemy is called, one of the enemies is called Hamas. It's deemed by them as a terrorist group. Has been firing a lot of rockets over to Israel, okay? A few hundred rockets a day. So in short, they are in a state of war. It just started when my plane took off. I was like, okay, it's like the best of luck, wow. Right? So I entered in the war zone, okay? I was like, oh no, there's no way back right now. Then, you know what? They actually say it's okay, don't worry. Right? I was like, what? You're in war and it's okay? So he's probably trying to think that I'm a tourist, trying to con some tourist dollar on me. But anyway, cut a long story short is everything seemed pretty okay. We checked in the hotel, and I didn't think too much about it because it was a long journey, about 16 hours to reach there. And I felt, and I went to I changed up, bathe, and lie down a bit and really sleep. And suddenly, no, I haven't even bathed yet. I just lied on a bed. I was really tired. And then the alarm sounded. Okay, I was like, what on earth is that alarm?
Like sirens.
It's siren, right?
War sirens.
Then there was an announcement came out, ladies and gentlemen, that's the air raid siren. Please come to the lobby right now with only your valuables. I was like, what? I'm so tired. So anyway, we took a time. I took my handphone. I kid you not. I said, if there's an air raid, there will be planes or something like that. So I was taking in the dark, must be some rockets flying around. I walked all the way to the lobby and there was nothing. There's nothing, but there was a huge crowd of people. So you can see on the photos on the left, that's me doing a victory sign. Why am I not inside is because it was packed and crowded. Me and my colleague who is on the second photo, we came in last, so we were left outside. But it's okay. Waited for a whole night, a few hours, and nothing happened. Eventually, they called it off, and I was like, what a waste of time. But the next day, I was like, really, I don't think anything happened, man. So, everybody go on with life. So I went to the beach and took a jog because everybody was surfing and swimming and having breakfast, and I was like, what kind of war is this? It's like, war you expect real action, right? Nothing. I was like, so I went for a jog. About maybe 20 minutes in a jog, suddenly I hear this loud explosion in the sky. Boom! I was like, what? I see this puff, and the second boom happened. So there are two. Wow. I was like, oh gosh, I quickly took a photo, and the photo was there. Long story short is that a Hamas rocket, the enemy rocket fired, and the Israelis fired this anti-rocket missile called Iron Dome. The whole country is filled with these anti-rocket missiles that they protected all the incoming missiles, and they fired at them and shot them all down. And the funny thing is this, I was the only one that was excited, taking photos and like, what, should I panic and run away or whatever, Should I fall on my knees and thank God? You know what? Nobody cared. Yeah. In Israel, nobody cared. They went on a breakfast, they went on a surfing, they went on with just day of life. Yeah. At best, they look up and they went down. It's like, so.
It's very similar to Korea. When North Korea fires missiles, the world is like worried. But South Koreans, they don't bother, right? Because it's every day.
Yeah. So anyway, long story short is that when I talked to the Israeli friends, they said that, oh, it's nothing to worry. We got an Iron Dome, right? Which is this anti-rocket missile. Fast forward, we're now in one of the worst economic crisis ever faced in modern history.
Yep.
There's a pandemic going on. I don't even think the pandemic will go away soon, okay? And yet, I'm at peace. Why? Because I have a strong financial iron dome, okay? And that's the cornerstone of what I'm going to talk to you about. What is your financial iron dome today? What is your safety net? Okay, next. So, in order for me to impress upon you what is this safety net we're talking about, is first, we got to first think of this thing called compounding. Some of y'all want to make money, Now, I'm going to switch. Okay, so the reason why I'm speaking in such perfect English right now is that because Sam is actually won't be able to understand some of my English.
Use
okay,
your Hokkien, it's okay.
So, but I can't hold that for a very long, and my Singlish will still and Hokkien will soon come out. So I'm going to unpretend myself in this thing. So I was with my financial mentor when I was a young age. So some of you guys, right? And he said, "Why are you so stupid? Why are you so stupid? The way to make money is not the way you do, right? A lot of people, Singaporeans, they make money but try to buy low, sell high, buy low, sell high, that kind of thing. You're not God, like. It's very difficult to do that. You think you're so smart. So anyway, I did that, and then I nearly pokai, right? I nearly went bankrupt, and it was very tough. Fortunately, I met my financial mentor in my low time financially, and when I was about 29 years old, he taught me this. Lou, it's all about compounding. If you look at the slide, if you can find something that gives you 4% return, right? Put as much money in right now, and it'll give you 3 times. Even better, you can find 8%, it'll give you 10 times. If you can find 10%, give you 17 times. So I was like, okay. So no longer, investment is not about trying to be smart, gei kiang. What's gei kiang? Gei kiang is gei kiang, okay? Gei kiang is act smart. You buy low, sell high, buy low, sell high. It's impossible to do that, right? I don't even think Sam in his super brain here can do that, right? So
nobody can. So
I can't, okay? Sam, some big shot in Morgan Stanley, with super brain power, super experience, also can't do that. What makes you think you can do that, right? Some of our 1M65 group came from other groups that really profess that they got this magic formula that can do this incredible thing and draw lines and charts whatsoever. Very few people can do that, okay? So anyway, long story short is that for me, it's about finding that magic formula, and I found the formula. Okay, next please. Okay, so I found that, hey, CPF, something that people hate, okay? You need to understand, in those days, people really hate the CPF. Nowadays, we got people love the CPF, okay? CPF must give me some credit on that. So, but those days, okay, being called Mr. CPF is, you Mr. CPF it's not like, wow, Mr. CPF. So when I first have that title, it was a bad name. It's like, Mr. CPF, pui, that kind of thing, right? So those days, CPF, very bad name. However, what we didn't know that it was a gem. So I was being shared this formula, right? I was being shared that, I came up with this magic formula, and then it says that, okay, if me and my wife at a young age of 30 years old, okay, we work very hard, we become thrifty, we $130,000 into our special account. It's not going to be easy, I know. Someone will say, Lou, where got 130,000? I didn't say it's easy, okay? I said, if you can work very hard, save money, don't go and buy big house or whatever. So we work very hard, we save a lot of money, whack $130,000 into the special account, okay? First of all, to do that is very tough. My wife said, wow, you're very smart, you come with this magic formula, you do it first, right? I said, no lah, you're a woman, Man said, I tell you what to do, you do first. You're so smart, right? So anyway, there's a bit of argument and quarrel. In the end, I did it first. I transferred a little bit first. Then they had no shock, and transferred more. Eventually, I finished. End of the year, beginning of the year, suddenly when the CPF, CPF right now, right, they come with this interest sheet. They only do it once a year because it's very stingy, right? Yeah. And then I was like, wow, interest so much. I go in front of my wife. Wow, my wife's, you have, I don't have, So anyway, so she also worked hard. We all both work very hard. We fill it up. And from that day onwards to the rest of our life until we reach 65 years old, we don't need to work, and we still have $1 million waiting for us at 65 years old. That's the beauty of it. So this is the magic formula where it came out called 1M65. I kid you not, this magic formula I share 87 times, and I've written tons of articles. I probably have spoken to 30,000 people in events like this. And it came out with this formula called 1965. Next, please. Thank you. Okay. And some of y'all say that, hey, but Lou, you say you don't need work and you still get, you can still get, but what if you work? Well, you have more than that. So some of us say, yeah, I know this BS thing, how do you make 1 million? Hey, hello, uncle, auntie, a boy, a girl. I just want to say this, okay? At 48 years old today, me and my wife, we combined, we're 1.4 million right now, okay? So then I asked myself, that was during COVID, a lot of time, right? Sit at home, do nothing, right? So I go and check on my accounts, whatever. Whoa, 1.4 million, damn shock. Then I said, ask myself this magic question. So how much will I have at 65 years old, right? Okay, so, at 65 years old, how much will I have? And then I did a spreadsheet, and I calculated and things like that, and I come out, wow, at 65 years old, I got a big number. I was like, it can't be so big. So I think I'm wrong. So what I did was that I went to the 1965 group and say, hey guys, this is Lou here. I think my Excel skill not so good. Anyone who are Excel experts, please come and help me to calculate how much money will I have 65. Okay, 13 people volunteered. Each of them financial and Excel experts. And they calculate. You know what all of them end up with? Okay.
I remember this.
Yeah.
We did it.
Okay. If I just continue to work, don't do anything extra, whatever money I have inside, stay where it is inside, just continue to work to the day at 65 years old, stop working, $3.5 million, right? And just basically do what I'm doing right now, nothing different, okay? $3.5 million. Now, I have to assume, now someone say, wow, Lou, your income so high, of course, I say, hello, government very smart, okay? Above $6,000, they disregard all your income. So up to $6,000, they don't allow you to top up anymore, contribute anymore beyond 6,000. So high income also useless, okay? Second is that I actually have some money in my CPF IS because of Endowus, okay? First time in Singapore history probably that the CPF can be used to purchase S&P 500, which I talk about it many times, but today I further stress again. So anyway, so S&P 500 is available. I put some money inside. I'm going to put much more money inside, and just let it compound. But as it is right now, just me and my wife continue to work, nothing extra, $3.5 million. Some of you say, hey Lou, I know my property, I can, can reach a few $1 million. I'm not so sure you can reach $3.5 million, okay? This $3.5 million can buy some landed houses, So anyway, then then I asked myself, I'm not going to sit there and do nothing in my ordinary account. It's only earning 2.5%. I think I'm smarter than that. I can put more into S&P 500 because of these guys, right? So how much would that be if I dump everything into S&P 500? Assuming that historically S&P 500 normal time frame of 20, 30,000. How many percent will you get normally?
7%.
So 7%, right? In some years they even get 9%. It's like
up to 10 sometimes. Yeah.
Really? Okay, 10.
Yeah.
But let's just go for the lower bound, 7, right? How much will it be? Okay. So if you invest, if me and my wife invest all our ordinary account into S&P 500 or equivalent, okay, what will it be? It'll be a humongous sum of $5+ million. Okay. Now this assume that there's a few tricks to here. Okay. Number one, I'll talk about it. All my ordinary account go into CPF IS. Sorry, all my CPF IS, which is my CPF investment scheme, ordinary account, all go into S&P 500. Now, somebody else said, Lou, where got people put everything inside? I said, okay. Don't talk about 5 minutes. So anyway, 5 and 6, 5 come from here. Okay, but usually I talk about next slide. Okay, which is that 4M65 is achievable, right? Some of my 13 smart Excel experts and financial experts even give a few ideas to make even up to $6 over million. I think that's kind of pushing it. Somebody say, no, you take out, use cash, can replenish your housing housing mortgage payments that you made and things like that, you know. So there's a lot of other tricks here and there. Anyway, 4M65 is achievable. I did not say that it's easy. Okay, 1M65 is much easier. 4M65 is not easy. Come on, make $4 million so easy. Come on, you must be kidding me, right? However, it's achievable. I give you the formula. Okay, I've given you the formula. Some else say, oh, there's risk here, there's risk there. Hello, where got anything in the world investment don't have risk one? Siawa, you know, for sure everything has a risk, but this one is at least something I can see it happening with a great level of confidence. All I need to do is to continue working. Put a little bit more in S&P 500, right? That's for me. Someone say, Lou, you started early, you know, you so smart then, you are a good mentor. This, okay, let's take a look at what is needed for Mr. and Mrs. Lou to make 4 million by 65. Number one is stay healthy. This word in the past people ignore. Now in COVID, I think everybody better pay attention. Better pay attention to this. Second is that stay married. Okay. Someone said, can we do 2M65 alone? I said very difficult. Why? Because there's economies of scale, right? There's 2 person working, paying the house, sharing the house together, all this. I think it's easier. Second is that we need to continue work, at least make $6,000 a month and have 1 month of AWS with a 30-month bonus. The third one is difficult, okay? And I always encourage people, please don't use your CPF to pay for your housing mortgage, especially in your mid to later years. Now in my early years, of course, I use CPF, I got money, right? But in the middle onwards, you know, and I stay in HDB, you know, I can buy a landed house. I will still stay in HDB. Why? Because HDB represents the best value. Okay, I think my backside is not so expensive that I need to lie down on a private property. He probably lie down on some big expensive house, but I don't. Okay, so
same.
Okay, so I actually don't use my CPF to pay for a housing mortgage. And you know, for me to hit 465, I calculated just put 10% of my portfolio into S&P 500. Okay, so that's what is needed. Okay. For some of you guys who have not joined our Telegram group, we have, and some of you will ask, hey, so Lou, how much would I have? Join our Telegram group, the link is there, okay? We have a CPF calculator and predictor inside. Key in your own numbers, everything comes up, right? The numbers will be mapped out. So this is one of the great work of one of our volunteers. They can calculate out every single year that you have all the way to 65 years old, how much money you have, okay? And that's great, you know, you can just key in and try yourself. So if you want to know how much money you have in CPF, join our Telegram group. We will give you the link to the CPF predictor. Oh gosh, okay. And so our fast track. So anyway, this thing became, the 1865 became popular, Straits Times published it. In the early days when this was published, everybody was calling me names, you know. Look here, I just want to say this. A lot of people, you guys hate the government, I understand. A lot of you guys hate the CPF, I also understand, okay? You can hate the government, you can hate the CPF, but you don't need to hate their money. You must love their money, right? So if they give you money, you take or don't take, right? You don't want to take, I want. So CPF is one way the government give you money, you don't take, you stupid, right? Okay, so anyway, so news articles start coming out and talk about 1865 and things like that. This is my mentee on that. Next, please. Okay, even anti-government, not so friendly to government website also talk about this and say that, yeah, it's a fact that it's guaranteed by government is a good investment. See, people like them who hate the government also know that government give you money, they also want to take, right? So next, okay. So I've been doing this for many years. Like somebody asked, you know, Mr. Lou is up to no good, right? I'm sure somebody is going to con money of us, or he's under payroll of government. I've done this 87 times. Not once have I collected 10 cents from it. Okay? I've not done this. I really do this because I genuinely think that it really helps the Singaporeans, right? Some of you say, hey, you're missing on the PRs. I say, okay, PRs also. I'm not so sure PR, I really want to stay here for very long, but I think at least the Singaporeans, you know, I really want you guys to benefit from this. You know, if you really make money out of this one day, you know, in years to come, you know, if you see me in the streets, just come and shake hands with me. That's good enough for me. Okay, next. In 2018, the government actually gave me a public sector transformation award, you know, for all my efforts in this. It's a great honor. So I was then I finally, the name Mr. CPF is a is a better name, right? People nowadays say, oh, CPF make money, it's a good thing, you know. Remember those days, Mr. CPF is a bad name, huh? Next, okay. So I talk like that, very tough. Very no breath really. I'm now 48, you know. I find that I cannot. This month I got 4 talks, you know, can die, you know. So I started to write articles. So you can actually Google some articles. I think I've written probably about 20 over articles. My latest one is called The Pandemic of CPF Illiteracy, especially targeting those people who criticize the CPF policies and all this and miss out the whole money-making machine for themselves. So please go and read it, okay? There'll be interesting articles coming up. Just pay attention on my Telegram chat. Next. Okay, so you can actually reach out. So two plays. Number one is at Telegram, Lou1865. Please join us. And second is our YouTube channel with Kate, very entertaining girl. Okay,
fantastic.
And a lot of Hokkien from me in this thing. Please bear with me. But I think you're gonna learn a lot. Our next topic is coming out. Is gonna be. There's going to be a bull run, a property bull run. Okay, so what should we do about it? Property bull run. So Kate and I did a video. It's coming out hopefully within a week. Okay, so look out for it. So please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Okay.
So there's been some questions asking about where the Telegram channel is. So this is it. So please look for it. For those of you who don't know, Kate is Lou's oldest daughter. She's amazing. She did all this editing of the YouTube and everything, right?
With friends, yeah.
Yeah, with friends. And she's a lot of fun, great videos, very educational, helpful, but a lot of fun. So please go there, subscribe, and also, you know, watch the YouTube channels. Before we move on, I have some slides to share with you to cement some of Lou's key ideas about, you know, compounding, you know, how to invest. But before we go there, there's a couple of questions here from Jennifer about, did you achieve 1.4 million today because you invested your OA from early years? If I'm not an investor, can I still achieve 1 million by 55, she changed to. And then there's another question related to that. It says, oh yeah, that's 1.4 million, only your own CPF, right? Excluding your wife.
No, okay.
So those two.
All right,
maybe answer that one first.
Let's go one by one first, okay? I can remember the second one. So $1.41 million is with my wife, okay? And that will compound to all the way to $4 million. I said before, it's easier to achieve it together jointly with your wife. Yeah. I'm a person who believes in a family nucleus. I think there is strength in a husband and wife relationship financially, okay? And you know, 1.4. It's easier to do it. So $1.4 million is me and my wife, and I will have a slightly larger one, and she'll less. But because I started a little bit earlier than her, so I think that's to answer the question. There was a second question on.
Can you invest? Do you have to start early to get to 1 million?
Okay.
By 55.
The earliest you can start on this strategy is when you're a baby.
0.
When you're a baby, when you're a baby, when you're born, okay, upon the receiving of the first baby bonus, which all Singaporeans will have, the CPF account is set up. Parents can quickly take advantage of that to start topping up the kids' special account. I've done some calculations. I think the number is around $80 over $1,000. If you throw $80 over $1,000 to your new infant, when she reaches 65 years old, that number will compound to $1 million. Which means that she don't need to, that's assuming she don't work for her whole life, and she'll still have $1 million. And of course, if she works, okay, it will be much more than $1 million. So some of you all say, wow, very difficult. How can young people today, they have houses, they have got cost of living so high and blah, 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 blah. You know what? I achieved at 30 years old $130,000, and I was quite a struggle for me. Okay, $130,000 into my special account and MediSave account. That's combined, I kid you not. If you join a Telegram group, you will see young adults at somewhere around 30 years old, plus minus, okay, achieving the full retirement sum of $181,000, excluding their MediSave account. I don't even know how they did it. Many of them have came out and showed that they've done it. Okay, so what we think is impossible, and these, you know what? These are ordinary salary people. The secret sauce is they start early and they are usually very thrifty, and they buy a reasonably small HDB house and has no private property aspiration.
You know, you have a few more slides.
Okay, let's just jump. So what's holding back everybody with CPF Millionaire? Maybe I'll keep that next slide, please. Let's not talk about this. Just save time.
Next one, yeah.
Okay.
Let's skip it.
Okay, this one. Singaporeans are crazy about property, and they love to buy private property. I can say this again, and we should do a lot more of this during Q&A and see whether you're interested. Buying a private property is one of the sure way that stop you from growing your CPF to be a CPF multi-millionaire. Okay, next please. Okay, the CPF property millionaire dream is probably over, right? Even as a little, the thing about the Singapore property market is this. Number one is we look at these big mega $1 million houses, they make a few $100,000, but you actually go and calculate their compound annual growth rate every year, how much you grow by. This is an example. There's this house that is the top profit of the week or something like that. It has a compound annual growth rate. This guy makes a $110,000 110% profit, $700,000, but it represents an annualized profit of 5%. 5%. CPF special account is 4% guaranteed, and this is not guaranteed. And the second in the queue, second in the ranking, is a house that makes annualized returns of 3%. 3% with risk. And the rest are 2%, 1%, and some even lose money. So long story short is that the Singapore property millionaire dream is probably over, okay? And we can debate about that later during a Q&A if anybody is interested. Next, please.
Sure. I think that's it, right? Oh, one more.
Okay. So this is a news article and came out and just say that it's probably now better to leave your money in CPF than investing in property, because the property returns is less than 2.5%. Okay, so if you leave your money in CPF, it's actually better, right? Now, there's always a healthy balance here and there. We talk about property investment. I do believe some of it needs to go property, but not the way Singaporeans are doing it in a very overly passionate manner. Next, please. Okay. So I've come to the end of my slides. Remember, do join us on our Telegram group. And if you want to link up with me, ask me questions personally or so, my contact is there. Thank you for your time.
Yep, there's more coming. So let's go with a question first before I do a little bit more on my part. So Shireen's asking, would like to invest part of my OA in some funds. Can you propose some?
Okay.
So I think she missed some part of it. And there's others is saying, finally happy to have access to S&P 500 for OA. Is it a good time to invest S&P 500 given that it is at its peak? So a lot of questions about S&P 500.
Okay.
Maybe just quickly on that.
All right, cool.
And I'll touch on that piece after you explain.
Okay. First of all, I just want to do a light touch. The expert is here, okay? The expert is here, but I like the S&P 500 because it's called a brainless investment. You don't use too much brains in it. You throw your money inside. Across the last 100 years, there's almost no window of 20, 30 years that investors don't make a reasonable return of 7% or more, right? So, but are they going to be daily fluctuation and monthly fluctuation? Of course, right? When we invest in S&P 500, the best way to invest is what? Buy, throw money inside, don't look at it for the rest of your life. Just keep throwing money inside, don't look at it. By the time you reach, 65 years old, when you look at a number, you'll be some phenomenal number. Now, it has been like that for the last 100 years, okay? What makes you think it won't be like that for the next 100 years, right? So, I think that's an interesting thing. And the good thing is that Endowus has made it possible, right? Last time, I was telling CPF, why don't you allow S&P 500? You let Singapore stocks is pretty, some my last presentation, someone called it Singapore stock market is like dead fish. I try to say again, investing in STI, Straits Times Index. Straits Times Index is called a super terrible index. Okay, so please don't invest in that one. You're gonna lose money. You're gonna lose money, and don't blame me. Okay. Anyway, I'm gonna pass this time over to Sam to talk about S&P 500.
Okay, so go back to the slides. So there was an article on the Straits Times about how to, make your extra cash work harder. So some of it was very, aligned to what Lou was saying about using SA, topping up, and, using the free money that government gives you. Great. But there was on the right side an article that followed on about a lesson from a man who lost most of his CPF money. I think he was down like 97% or something, right? And they made it like, oh, scary, CPF, don't invest your CPF money. But actually this gentleman, it's a very sad story, but he pulled money out at 55. He went to DBS Bank, oops, sorry, I shouldn't say the name, but a bank. And he bought a high flux PUP bond and lost 97%. It's not easy to lose 97%, but obviously poor advice, if you don't know what you're investing in and you don't know the risk you're taking, these are some of the things that happens. But actually it has nothing to do with CPF, right? It's your cash that you invested. The problem is that you did not invest well. And I think this goes to one of the problems that we face is, Xingxi, the next slide, is about diversification. Now, this is high flux, obviously. We know what happened to it, and this is what resulted in that poor gentleman and his family's poor fortunes. But I go back to what Lou said before. This is the chart of STI, super terrible index, versus the S&P 500,
yep.
And how over the past decade alone, the difference in returns. And many people focus on, this home bias. I need to invest in STI. But it's actually a false belief. It comes from the United States. If you're in the US and you're investing in domestic markets and you have a home bias, it's great because S&P 500, as you can see in the next slide, is made up of amazing companies that have global presence, that have global market share. And you compare that to the super terrible index. Do you really want to own Jardine Matheson and, Singapore Exchange and CapitaLand versus, an Amazon or a Facebook or Berkshire Hathaway or JP Morgan, the best companies around the world who are gaining market share? So this is, why
Can I jump in?
Yeah, sure.
Can I jump in this slide? First of all, I need to say this, okay? Some of y'all said, we're going to invest in some Angmo index, it's like, look here, Singaporeans, listen to me, wake up. Your salary is from Singapore, it's made in Singapore. Your CPF is in Singapore. Your savings in Singapore. Your property in Singapore. Do you also want your stocks and shares to be in Singapore? Can you see one big geographical risk there? If Singapore would be impacted very badly, in fact, like right now, everything goes down. Can you see that? So be careful of over concentrating on this thing called geographical risk. Second thing is this: the Singapore stock market from a high. If you go back to the STI index versus S&P 500. From the high, it hit a high of 3,800 points in 2007 or 8 before the great financial crisis, and it has crashed all the way until today. It has never recovered. Why? The whole market is so bad that nowadays foreign companies don't want to list their stock in the SGX anymore, right? Singapore companies who want to IPO their stocks, they go to US, right? So, or Hong Kong, whatsoever. Anything is better in Singapore. Why is it so? You gotta start thinking. I will go right now as far and say something very controversial. I'm going to say something about most Singapore stocks are bad, right? If you invest in SGX. So, you got to be careful, and there's a reason why, right? Because Singaporeans are generally not very risk-taking. So, as a result, the whole market won't be very risk-taking. We're all dividend seekers. We all want safe money. So, how can the stock market outperform the entire culture of Singapore, right? So, and there's not much tech stock in the Singapore SGX. How are you gonna make a lot of money? So anyway, for all these reasons, I personally believe now you can purchase your S&P 500 not necessarily on Endowus from something else. Unfortunately, in 2008, there's only one guy that managed to get CPF to approve, and that's amazing. I want to ask you why so. But you can buy S&P 500 using cash from other places, but you know what? It turns out to be the safer approach that I think over a long period of time, right? STI, this home biasness, this familiarity is actually destroying the wealth of many Singaporeans.
And the reason S&P 500 makes sense is because although many people think S&P 500 is US only, but actually 40% of revenue of these companies actually come from around the world, which is actually a good diversified risk for the exposure that you get. And that's why we espouse at Endowus, diversification in a very sensible manner that reduces risk, achieves higher returns, and you have to get this access at low cost. That is the most important thing. You cannot just buy S&P 500 index. There's a cost to buying this, and there's not a very, very low cost ETF way to do it here in Singapore. You can only buy US ETFs, which have FX costs, they have tax implications. There's a question, many people ask us about the US estate tax. God forbid anything happens to you, you invest in US ETFs, and you get, inheritance tax of 30–40%.
Yep.
And in Singapore, we don't have inheritance tax. So these are all things that we need to take into account. FX, tax, cost of accessing these index. And for CPF, they have a gate around this, and I can't tell you everything, the secret sauce, but we worked really hard to bring in Vanguard passive index funds for the sake of CPF members so that they can access these wonderful investment products at low cost. And the only reason it's exclusive to Endowus is because we decided to pay back all the trailer fees, the commissions that we get from the fund managers. We decided to give back to you, the investors, because you deserve it. And that's the only way. We are the only exclusive distributor of S&P 500 and global equity Vanguard managed passive index funds in CPF. So the other reason diversification matters, and this goes a little bit against maybe a pure S&P 500 strategy, but it's really, really important for the long term when you're investing. Now, equities in in the US, this is S&P 500 index, goes through cycles. So there is a point in time during a recession or a financial crisis, markets fall by 20–30%. But look at what bonds does during that exact same period during the recession. So having a bond allocation gives you protection. It reduces volatility. And the reason it's important is because you're emotionally so stressed out, right? Imagine market falls 30% like in March this year. If bonds was protecting some of that and reducing the volatility and the risk, then that's a good thing. And it allows you to stay invested for the long term, which is the right thing to do. Even in March, bonds actually protected your assets really well, and year to date, it's actually done very well.
Okay, so I jump in this. I do have a lot of bonds.
Yes.
Okay, I don't do equity only, but for simplicity of communication, I encourage everybody to just at least move from Singapore stocks to S&P 500. I think the sophistication that companies like Endowus can offer you is to take a look at bonds. I think you should pay attention to them. About half my portfolio is in bonds.
And within the CPF space, you should look at your SA portion as the bond piece. 4%, 5%, a little bit, guaranteed, risk-free. That's great. That's the fixed income portion of your allocation. So a lot of away, for me, bulk of it should actually be in equities, S&P 500 or a globally diversified portfolio that is low cost. Now, Lou talked about the impact of compounding. This is a comparison of 2.5% return over a long period of time, and CPF we know is locked in 35 years, 40 years. If you continue to invest for the long term beyond retirement, because your OA guarantees 2.5 beyond retirement, you can keep it there, take it out anytime you want, and that pot of money will keep getting 2.5%, great. But it's barely above inflation, cost of living here in Singapore, and this is not 7%. Lou, you use 7%, I use 6%. And this is over 30 years, a 540% difference. And many people, if you're 25, 30, 40 years is until just 70. And the impact of 1,288% difference in return, a 15 times increase in the investment that you make. This is the power of compounding.
Sure.
And the compounding works both ways. So upside, but also cost. If you invest in a high cost investment vehicle, then that cost will compound and take away returns quite dramatically. So if you can save cost by even 1%, that improves your returns over 30 years by 250%. So that's the power of compounding both ways. And individual investors have it tough because this is JP Morgan's survey of what investors actually manage to achieve in their personal investment portfolio. US stocks, S&P 500, 10% over 30 years. Average investor achieved 2.6%. There's a reason for that. People chase markets up, chase markets down. We sell at the bottom, we chase markets up. But a lot of it is just behavioral. The other thing is asset allocation. They have too much cash. Everybody has too much cash. Even in Singapore, it's property and FD. And I don't think enough people invest their money well.
I think the average investors, when the market buy right, if you want to make money, when the market crash, you buy, and when the market rise, you sell, right? But most investors will do the opposite, and then they lose a lot of money. When the market goes down, crash, they sell and they lose money, and it goes up. They get scared. Some of them make a little bit of money and they sell, or some of them go and chase when it's so sky high and suddenly it crash. So long and short is that it's not easy to do this kind of stock picking and this kind of investment strategy as an average investor. Right?
And this, have you seen this number before? OCBC Wellness
No,
Survey?
I haven't yet.
So this is a survey of Singapore's state of affairs in investing.
I see.
More than one third do not even invest. CPF came out with their new numbers at the end of December 2019.
Yep.
To your point about children, people under children own almost $300 million of CPF.
Really?
Amazing number.
Wow.
But the other scary number is there's $180 billion of CPF money sitting in OA doing nothing. Just collecting 2.5.
Yeah, but
understandable, but I think you can invest some of that to do more to money. But the other scary thing is that they do stupid things with it. They speculate excessively for quick gain, and as a result, most people are unhappy with their investing and their outcomes.
Or buy some insurance product that makes them lose money. That's the worst of it, right? I'm super against insurance, investment-linked policies and whole life policies, right? And that's a terrible way to invest.
Yeah, I agree completely.
Yeah.
So insurance-linked products are sold as if you get insurance and you get investment, the best of both worlds. But in reality, you don't get coverage and you don't get returns.
You get worse of both worlds.
Worse of both worlds, precisely.
Yes.
Just quick reminder on what happened this year.
Yep.
The fastest bear markets, fastest market recovery.
Sure.
We talk about how people don't invest well and their outcomes are poor, but it's precisely because we cannot predict the future.
Sure.
We think that we can predict the future, but we cannot. And this crisis was actually the fastest, but it's the 5th largest drawdown from peak to trough. It's not a normal crash, normal bear market. This is the 5th highest fall in the history of mankind, and it happened this year. But if you think about every single recession, this happens, right? I explained to you what happens in a recession, 30% fall from peak to trough. It happens sometime, but we don't know when it happens. It happens sometime before the crisis or recession, during the recession, or after the recession. The only thing we know is that if you just slept through all of it, you would have missed that fall. And you would have just been flat, and then the market would have rebounded very sharply. And this is the most important thing, because most of the returns comes in that rebound. So this is an amazing statistic. Since 1970 to 2020, if you had invested $1,000, that's 50 years in US S&P 500, you would have ended up with 121x gain, $121,000. But you miss one day. The one best performing day, it goes down to 108. You miss 5 best days, it goes down to 77,000. You miss 15 best days, it goes down by 2/3 to $43,000. And you miss 25 best days, which is barely a month out of 50 years, you lose almost, a significant chunk of that amazing gain, which is to say that the market rewards long-term investors who stay invested. Everyone thinks they can time the market, but you're not smarter than the market. So stay invested. That's how you get the long-term big returns.
Sure.
And this is the long-term S&P 500 90-year chart. Average is about 9%. I think I forgot about the number, but it's about 9%.
So I use 7%. I'm being conservative.
Yeah, this is the chart.
Yep.
And then the next chart is a really interesting chart because it shows all the bull markets and all the bear markets. And the bear markets really shock us and scare us, and it feels so long because it's so scary. But if you look at it in the big picture over the long term, the problem is not the bear markets. The problem is that we don't believe in the bull market. We sell too early.
Sure.
We don't remain invested, and therefore we don't get the long-term returns that we get if we stay invested in markets for the long term. So with that, I'll take a pause and maybe answer some questions that are in the
okay.
YouTube.
So if you got any questions, fire off to the comment section.
Chat room. Yep.
Yep.
Okay. So when you say S&P 500, is there a particular fund you? Okay, this one we already answered.
Okay. Next.
I'm struggling to understand the formula, Mr. Liu, saying that as long as we put in 130,000 in CPF, we would be able to achieve 1M65. How does Endowus come into the picture?
Okay, so are you able to go back to the slide? So what we're saying is this: forget about Endowus for now. Okay, forget about S&P 500.
It's different.
Just special account gives you 4% return minimally. They actually able to give you 5 or 6% at different age, but let's assume 4%. 4% return, 4% return, you let it just compound, okay? Over, if you're 30 years old, you have $130,000 inside. At 4%, that thing will compound to, for 2%, you will compound, so each person compound to $500,000, and then we sum up 2% gives 1 million, okay? Now that's assuming you don't work anymore for the rest of your life, from 30 years old all the way. So compounding graph goes like this. So in the initial years or 10 years or so, it's very boring. And then somewhere around the 15 year, it starts to turn. So and then we turn up, it jumps up phenomenally. I just like to say, I'm in this side now. So every year jump is phenomenal. I love it, right? So you got to just bear with initial pain, and then it turns up. That's just mathematics. That's just mathematics. That's just as long as, I don't know, the PAP government is there and the CPF rules don't change, you're going to be there, okay? So that has nothing to do with Endowus. Now, if you want to have more returns than that, because your ordinary account is making 2.5%, which is not low because you compare to the fixed deposit, it's near zero right now. It's not bad, but 2.5%, a bit, not so exciting. So if you put it in the S&P 500, which I'm more confident you'll make money over a long period of time, it'll give you 7, 8, 9% return. So it's something I don't think I'll be very happy about at this return rates. Next question, please.
So topping up SA aggressively may prevent one from topping up annually in future to achieve tax savings. Any comments? Does that?
I don't quite understand the question.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't quite understand.
I think it's an annual top up, right? So and there's a limit. So yeah.
Well, every year you are allowed to top up $7,000 for tax savings. So so you get that, and this is an annual thing. So it doesn't mean that you use it up right now. Next time you cannot do it. So government allows $7,000 top up. I think you can top up your parents' CPF account as well, or retirement account, and you get also some tax savings, assuming they are not working. Okay. Yeah. Next.
What advice for young adults who have just started working to pay for their flat? As you mentioned, it's a bit impossible to pay using cash at the early years.
Yes, that's a good question. Yeah. Okay. The question is, can you repeat the question again?
What advice for young adults who have just started working to pay for their flat? As you mentioned, it's a bit impossible to pay using cash. Yeah.
So first,
at the early years.
That's a very good question. First of all, do not stretch yourself to buy beyond a BTO flat. Okay, the BTO flat represents the best value that money can get because it's subsidized, right? So get a BTO flat and kill all your private property aspiration, right? People buy private property thinking that you'll appreciate like crazy. People buy private property for the enjoyment of amenities and things like that. People buy private property, because you'll make their mother-in-law happy or make their wives happy and things like that. You know what? It kills you from becoming a CPF millionaire, right? So, between looking rich and being rich, you have to pick one, right? I prefer being rich, okay? So, as much as possible, buy a humble flat in the beginning for sure, right? Most of us will use our CPF to pay. But as your income goes higher, you may start to just bring it down and use cash to pay. So that you allow your CPF to go into compounding, right? Now, if you buy $1 million condos and things like that, there's no chance that you're going to use able to tap your CPF for all this compounding, okay? And the power of compounding of the interest will now work against you, okay? So you may have, around 30 years time, when you sell the flat at $1 million or $2 million profit, half of that or 1/3 of that, maybe even 3/4 of that may go to pay the interest, right? So anyway.
Okay.
Next.
So there's a few questions that maybe I focused on in Endowus about Vanguard, S&P 500, estate taxes, about the lost decade in S&P 500, and then how is it different from robo investments? So maybe I'll take that one first, and if you want to add anything. Basically, Endowus is the only way to invest in an S&P 500 for the CPF OA. So that we've established, we've worked really hard to achieve this and bring in very high quality Vanguard managed portfolio for you, so at the lowest cost achievable. So Endowus is the exclusive way to access that. For cash, some of you have asked, we also have it so you can access it at low cost, at the lowest cost at the fund level. We also build it into a globally diversified portfolio, which is an advised portfolio. Some people have asked, which one's better, S&P 500 in the chat room, and 1M65 is a common topic. But it's really dependent on your risk level and depends on your views about, there's so many questions, maybe you look at some while I answer. So there's I can go here maybe. So I'll answer some questions about S&P 500 while you do that. And basically S&P 500, the lost decade we're talking about is the period from 1999 when the tech bubble burst to 2010, basically, after the financial crisis, during a period where emerging markets did really well. It went up 5x. Developed markets in general did very well, but the US market and S&P 500 actually went down. So for a whole 10-year period, it went down. From that period, after the financial crisis to now, it has been the best performing index. So it goes to show that sometimes S&P 500, single indexes, single country indexes may not give you the returns that you need. But if you stretch that period out to a much longer period of 20 years or 30 years or 50 years, the numbers look great. And so having a globally diversified portfolio gives you a balanced risk and a balanced return profile. So it's always risk and return. They both move together. Higher risk means higher return. Lower risk returns lower return. But you can balance that risk. So Endowus advised portfolios, which are globally diversified, is an effective way to do that. But we also give you access to the S&P 500, which is a very concentrated but a great globally diversified also solution for you. And this is what Lou prefers, and we completely support that view as well. So it's up to you, depending on what your view is. We offer both solutions at the lowest cost possible.
Okay.
Yeah. Good questions?
All right. Wow, there's a lot of questions.
So many questions.
We gotta catch up. I'll try to answer my question first, and I'll go really fast, okay? First of all, Junice, Aga, good to see you again. She asked, how about buying a freehold condo of which the mortgage is more than paid for by rental income? Okay? So some people say, okay, buy a freehold property. If I can get a mortgage to be covered by the rental, is that a good strategy? I think it's not bad a strategy, okay? The only problem is this, that number one is that the question is whether the property appreciate as high as S&P 500. I doubt so, but maybe it does. Second is that rental incomes in Singapore are really bad right now. And with this exodus of the Ang Mohs and the foreigners and things like that because of COVID, and the government only give income subsidies and all this wage subsidies only to locals, we have lost a lot of foreigners, and foreseeably this will be there for a while as long as the impact of COVID is there. So even before the COVID hits, so rental incomes are really bad. So I'm not so sure how sustainable this strategy is in the long run. Okay, next question. Someone asked, can I invest my SA fund through Endowus? The answer is no. Okay, SA, very few funds are allowed. Okay, but why do you want to invest your SA? It's giving 4% at zero risk, right? Right. Very few funds out there can beat this at zero risk. Okay, you cannot say that something gives you 7%. Oh, therefore it's more than 4%. But that one has risk. Yeah.
The only thing I would say is that we have come across investors who are willing to take that risk. So we always say, do not invest your SA. Your 4% or 5% guaranteed, risk-free, amazing. Use it as a fixed income return. But some investors who have a lot of cash savings, who have, you know, their full like retirement, you know, to the max, and they have enough in their OA and their SA is rising. And so they want to take that risk and invest. And there are a couple of funds. The ones that popularly are mentioned is the First State Bridge Fund. There's also within CPF a balanced portfolio from Schroders, the Revolution, and both have actually decent track record. And both, you know, over period of time have beaten that 4% return. But as Lou highlighted, it's the difference between completely risk-free return and risk and return. So if you're okay with it, then that's something that you can look into. It's something that Endowus does not offer. We are actually looking into offering that solution for investors who want to take that risk, but it's not something that at this moment we are comfortable offering. We would rather that you use your OA more effectively and invest for the long term in globally diversified portfolios.
Okay.
Or the S&P 500.
The questions are coming in fast and furious.
Fast and furious. So many.
I don't know whether we can answer all that, but let's try, okay? Let's try, okay? So someone mentioned that, someone said that you mentioned that using cash later to pay for HDB, meaning that taking bank loans with lower interest rate or doing housing refunds by cash. Yes, as much as possible.
This one easier to read.
Okay. As much as possible, we want to use cash to pay for it because the money in your OA gets 4%. Sorry, in either 4% or 2.5%. And if you use your cash to pay for it, your cash is getting zero returns in your bank. Okay, so using pay for it is better. So in that sense, you actually make the difference, right? So next.
You mentioned using cash later to pay for it.
Yeah, that's the one I just mentioned. Okay. Can you answer the question? This is an interesting question. Is it better to enter Endowus to buy? I assume you are looking at S&P 500, right? After US election.
And then read this one.
Which share might drop during that period.
And then another question by Chun Yip Kok. I understand that one should not time the market, but with equities being so overvalued, now how do we start? I plan to hold long term, but one lump sum of CPF 10,000 do not seem wise.
Okay. I just give a short view on this after I'll let Sam answer it. Okay. I think there's going to be another webinar on the US election. How do you know for sure that the stock market will crash after the US election? Right. I think there's a lot of combinations of it. You know, generally people think that if Trump were to win, the stock market will go up. If Biden were to win, the stock market will go down. I don't know about that. I don't know whether Trump will win or lose. Some people hate Trump. I don't like Trump. But if he wins, the stock market goes up. So therefore, I like him for that purpose. But you know what? It's difficult to guess, right? So if you look at the history of last 100 years, the S&P 500 goes like that. Yes, there's going to be down and up, But you know, I told you, right? Dump the money in, close your eyes, live on your own life, right? Give yourself 20 years, 30 years, the market is going to be up. Next, please.
Yeah. On this, So basically, there's two things. One is the US election. So events. Do events matter in investing? US elections, China going through their Communist Party, 15-year, long-term targets, North Korea, Middle East crisis. There's so many events that happen. COVID. But look what happened during COVID. Could we have predicted that the market would have fallen 30% in less than 1 month? Could you have predicted it bounces back 60, 70% within 3 months? These are all things that we cannot predict. So trying to time the market is fundamentally flawed because in everything else, as human beings, we agree that we cannot predict the future, not even tomorrow. But when it comes to financial markets, suddenly we have clairvoyance and we think we can predict the future. So that's the biggest problem, that we cannot predict the future. The second thing is this issue of valuation. The market is overvalued. But overvalued versus what? Overvalued versus Singapore property Is it overvalued versus venture capital investments, which are at historical highs, versus private equity investment, versus fixed income, which is in a 35-year, 50-year bull market? Interest rates, as you know, fixed income, as interest rates fall, prices go up in bonds. So as the prices have gone to zero and negative, we're at a historical high in fixed income. Every asset class, even Bitcoin now, is back to historical high or close to highs. Gold is at historical high. Every asset class is historical high. So when you compare public market equities, you have to say this is expensive, but versus what? There's so much liquidity, so much quantitative easing, and valuations are not at historical high numbers. So we have to be mindful of understanding what we are comparing and where is this money going to go to if we don't invest in equities. And I still see so many people with so much cash. And that over allocation to cash is what drags returns meaningfully over time. So yes, if you're uncomfortable with the risk, if you're uncomfortable with the timing, then maybe invest half your money, maybe dollar cost average, the remainder like every month or every week, so you're comfortable with that risk. But I think the worst thing to be is not be invested at all. You should be invested even in fixed income. Yeah.
Okay. So there are two quick questions. Number one is, what about China exposure via Endowus? If one has already some US stock exposure. I'll do a quick one on this, then you can give your opinion, okay? Number one is that I like to invest in something that has proven to be successful, okay? And the US market is pretty mature, sophisticated. China market, ever since the 2015 crash, it's not really recovered. So China market is still figuring out its way and things like that. I don't have that confidence myself, so I invest in something safe. For some of y'all who are willing to take a gutsy bet whatsoever, you can try, but that's just a bet, right? For me, it's just putting something as proven and let it grow at an exponential rate. Right? Cool.
Yeah. So for me, China is an important market. Long term, it's going to be a big part of the economy. It already is, second largest economy. There are great companies, but it's not the best in terms of governance. We don't know what the growth is. There's a lot of risk in that market too. So balancing that out is really important. And we espouse a very passive asset allocation. We are trying to be scientific, systematic, evidence-based. And so to Lou's point, like having long-term historical track record is important, and delivering on what you say is really important. And so China is an important piece, but if you have a globally diversified portfolio, you would have exposure to China anyway. So that is the beauty of having a globally diversified passive asset allocation portfolio. Adding China is fine, but it's dependent on your risk.
Okay.
Yeah, appetite.
I'm going to speed answer some of the questions that are more pointed at me. Number one is, when is it late to start when is it too late to start to reach 1M65? First of all, most of us have CPF, okay? And the key thing is to make sure you max out your SA returns. Now, if you start late, you may not reach 1M65. What about 500,065 or 0.7565, right? So 0.75 M65. My point is that the key thing is not so much the magic number 1 million, right? Is to make sure you max out your returns in your CPF through the special account. Second is that, don't be hard fixed on number 65, right? So nowadays we have got presidents at 71 years old, prime ministers at 91 years old. Guys, be willing to work, stretch your working life a lot longer. You keep yourself well energized, and then the money can go a lot faster, can grow a lot longer. Remember, I told you the exponential graph goes like this. The longer slower you take out your CPF, the graph goes like this. That's why when someone and say that, they're trying to stretch out the retirement and things like that. I say when that day happens, I might be quite happy. Okay. But anyway, next. There's another question on. Wait.
This is CPF Shield.
No, I don't think we can answer that. I'm trying to answer. Give me a minute.
In cash.
It has. No, there's answer. Sorry.
This one, HDB loan.
I'll skip that first. There was a. Oh yes. Okay. Wow. So the question is, Lou, would you say that if one have to have more than 1,065,000, one should actively invest his OA funds once the SA reaches FRS? if there's anything to take note of if I'm starting at 48 years old right now. So the answer is, the question is you know, if one wants to have more than 1 million by 65, is it always necessary to invest in S&P 500? The answer is, it depends. Okay, it depends on where your starting point is. If you're starting at 48 years old with $0 in your SA, which cannot be, okay, then it might only be the path that you have to throw more money into S&P 500, because that gives you 7% or more. So, but however, most of us have some CPF. So the answer is, it really depends. Regardless of what it is, you know, for myself, because we start early, and for quite a few of the for quite a few of the 1M65 followers, we have reached their FRS at a young age. You know, they can reach multi-millions without even touching the S&P 500. Which means that if they touch the S&P 500 with their spare ordinary account, they will hit a lot more than that. Okay. Yep.
Okay. Let's see.
Okay, something about okay, yes,
Emergency.
yeah, I think it's a good question. Okay, I think this question is asked a few times. The question is, you know, should we set aside some emergency fund? Okay, is cash smart a good place to park your cash fund? And how much do you recommend for emergency cash fund?
You start with how much?
Okay, I'll answer this one.
Yeah.
I used to think that Singapore is kind of difficult to get unemployed. You know, if you are willing to take up lower paying job and a job that you don't like, most of us can find a job within 2 to 3 months. So I've always said, you know, maintain a fund for living expenses of 3 to 6 months. However, COVID struck, and that was not a rainy day, it was a stormy day. It's a huge mega storm. So I recommend now a little bit more, right? 6 months, stretching to 9 months of living expenses. I think that's probably my safety net for living expenses.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that. It depends on everybody's circumstances. You know, if you feel that your job is at risk, obviously you would try to extend that. If you feel very comfortable, or you're running your own business and things are going well, or you're a beneficiary even of, you know, digital transformation and things are going well, then maybe you can be a bit more, you know, risky with that allocation. Cash Smart was created specifically to manage the short-term liquidity because our clients ask for it. Because, you know, deposit rates are falling so much, saver bonds are now down to 0 point something percent. So there's not any good ways to manage your short-term liquidity or cash. So Cash Smart has two options. One is a safe, you know, 1% plus kind of yield product, which is mostly made up of cash fund, which is, you know, Fullerton Cash Fund. Temasek's money is managed there. Basically, it's very safe, institutional bank deposits. So it's not risky at all. And then money market product, which is like enhanced yield. So we combine them to build a product that is very safe. The worst case outcome was 0.02% fall in March of 2020, but it was made up within a couple of days. So virtually no days of fall, 1% yield, which is much better, but much better than fixed deposit. Is completely daily liquidity. You can take it out, put it in, take it out anytime you want. No risk, no penalty, daily interest rate accrual. And then we have an enhanced product which targets about 2% yield, but that one takes risk. So understand that there is a risk. The worst case outcome, it could fall by up to maybe 2%. But once again, in that worst outcome, it will come back very quickly. And long term, it should generate 2%. And the only time it did that was March of 2020, which is the worst crisis we've seen in the history. And especially in fixed income, there were major dislocations. Again, in 2008, in the global financial crisis. But apart from those two periods, it's never happened before, that kind of a major 2% correction. 2%. So 2% maximum fall, but made it back. So the 2% enhanced yield has some risk, but obviously gives you that boost in return. And as I said, there's no free lunch here. You have to take a little bit of risk to achieve that 2%. Otherwise, you go to a bank and get your 0.1%, you know, or 0.4% fixed deposits.
Okay. So someone said, Mr. Lu, you said a property bull run is coming, but your presentation showed that the property gains are probably over. Yeah. No, the truth of the matter is that I'm going to be talking about the property bull run that we are seeing right now. Very few people actually see it, but on the ground right now, all the sensors are telling me that there's a current property bull run, right? I personally don't think it is a long-term bull run or mid-term bull run. It's probably a short-term bull run. The thing about property bull runs are this. I will talk about why the property bull run is here anecdotally, okay? It's all driven by COVID, right? One of the main reasons is that the BTO flats are all held back. You know, there's no more foreign workers there are no more foreign workers that are building for a long period of time. Even right now, as they are going back to build a house, they got social distancing, they got, you know, separation, team A, team B, that kind of thing. Like, you know, it takes forever to build a BTO flats. So all the newlyweds cannot wait anymore. You know how long right now is the queue for BTO flat? 62 months, right? If a young guy says, I'm gonna get married right now, you know, apply for it, you'll get his flat possibly up to 62 months later. So young couples cannot wait anymore. 62 months, about 5 years, right? So they go and buy resale flat. Everybody get very chong and buy resale flat. And once this lemmings, you know, this great rush of people go and chong resale flat, the rest of people also join and chong. And as a resale flat owner sell the house, the condo, they go and buy condo and goes up the landed property. It's all driven by COVID, right? So the thing about property bubbles is this: our government loves to burst property bubble. They take one sharp needle, see a property coming, they blow it up.
I agree with that.
They do it again and again and again. So yes, there's a property bubble right now, but it won't last. Probably won't last much longer, right? It won't last for a long period of time. But however, in the short run, I do think there's a property bubble. Okay.
Okay, sounds good. And do you want to answer this, or is that not relevant?
Which CPF life scheme would you advocate? I must say again, I hope my CPF colleagues are not in the CPF people are not in this group, because I'm going to say something quite negative. The CPF life scheme is one of the cheapest. You know what cheapest? Cheapest is complicated scheme I've ever seen. You know, after they explained to me maybe about the 6th or 7th time, you know what? I still don't understand half of it. Okay, it's very complicated. It's very complicated, and there are 3 schemes out there. You know, one goes like this, one goes like this, one goes like this, and things like that. You know what? If you have 1.65 or 4.65, okay, work very hard towards that. You know why? So that by the time you reach 1.65 or 4.65, whatever scheme you pick for CPF life also not important, because what they give is so little versus what you get from the rest of your 4.65 and 1.65. So in short, I came to this conclusion that I give up understanding of CPF life because it's so complicated, and I just focus on making a hell of money out of CPF. So the day when I retire, the scheme, whatever scheme I choose, it doesn't really matter.
I think there was a question on China and the weighting, and I'm not espousing you to invest in China, but I'm just answering questions about China allocation. If you have a passive global asset allocation, emerging markets represent about 10 to 12%, depending on when you are, and then China would represent just over 5%. Now, if you want to be aggressive, you can say that you over allocate to China because China A shares is not included in the MSCI index, and therefore you should have maybe 7%. If you use a GDP-based mechanism, not market cap weighted, you should be overweight China. So all of those ways are relevant, and it depends on how you look at it. But anything between 5 to 10% allocation to China is a passive, I think you can call it a passive allocation to China. And we achieved that through our globally diversified portfolio. Obviously, in S&P 500, there is less China exposure. So that's, you know, your choice. That's good for some people who are bearish China. Yeah. If you want to be passive, then you can do a global passive investing. So it really is dependent on your risk appetite and what you're trying to achieve with the portfolio that you're building.
Okay, I'm going to answer a few questions. Number one by J1 is that I hope Endowus can help us. On CPF special account investment soon. Okay, I'm going to say this. Endowus, please don't help them in that. The special account, don't be mad. It's almost impossible to beat a 4% risk-free investment, right? Do not touch your special account. It's compounding like a snowball, fierce, and you're going to take it out and invest in something, that has risk, right? It's very good. You cannot look at returns without looking at the risk. I have a hedge fund that I invest in. it gives 40-50% return. I key not a year. I've shown it before. You know what's the risk? The risks are phenomenal. It goes up and down, up and down, up and down. Some of you won't be able to sleep, every night when you invest in the kind of fund, right? So I'm trying to say that you cannot look at an investment item and just look at the returns. You must look at the risks as well. Special account got zero risk. How on earth are you going to beat that, right? So, just pay attention on that. Next is Lou, is it advisable to invest? Oh goodness, okay. Is it advisable to invest your OA if one has not reached the FRS in SA? That means that you have not built up your FRS in full. Now, when you say reach FRS is 181,000, that's quite a lot, okay? You do not need to reach there to start investing in OA. But at least try to hit minimum, what I call financial safety net. I think 130,000 is with your SA and your MediSave is a good number to start with. I started with that, okay? Now, for some of them, they actually take it a personal achievement to hit FRS, and it's perfectly fine. But to start into S&P 500 or equivalent with zero SA flips the other way. I think it's quite dangerous, right? I think there's a sequence. Now, I'm pretty open about this when I share about my investment strategy. I'm going to share again. So when I was young, I invest my SA, fill it up, okay? Then I form my financial safety net. Then I realized that whatever the stock market do, I can sleep very well. So I invest in S&P 500. And I invest in S&P 500, and unfortunately I also invest a bit in quite a lot in STI, which then I got my lesson after 15 years. So I know, to hell with it. Anyway, then after investing in this, then I realized, I could take more risk. So I invest in higher risk managed funds and hedge funds and things like that. Now I'm into startup investments, right? So the risk goes up and up, but because I build up the risk, build up the financial safety net gradually, so it becomes safer and safer, right? So this is something I encourage everybody to do. Like, learn to walk before you start to run. Learn to run before you start to fly, okay? So learn to fly before you start rocketing. Like, I think that's a key thing in investment. Very important to learn that.
One thing I would add, and maybe this is a way to look at it from a financial asset allocation perspective. So what I mentioned about SA being a fixed income portion of your investment, if you think about it that way and say, I want to have an OA portion, don't lock up your money in SA. You can top up and just go 100% fixed income. That's okay too, because that's your risk appetite. You want risk-free 4%, 5%, top up SA max, go for retirement sum. That's your priority. Don't invest your OA. That's one way to do it. But if you want to have a balanced portfolio, the way to do it would be to allocate certain equities from your OA. Don't top up to SA, only the portion you want, and a steady amount of allocation to SA, topping up, and then FRS. Reach that over a 10, 20-year period. So you get there eventually, but allocate between your equities and OA and fixed income, which is SA. So I think that's one way to look at your asset allocation between your equities and OA through S&P 500 and your SA, which is like a fixed income return, 4-5% guaranteed and risk-free. So if you think of it that way, then it's easier to understand and conceptualize where you want to eventually get to with the pool of CPF money that you have. So that's one way to do it. One other thing that I think somebody kept mentioning is the minimum investment we have with Endowus. We have a $10,000 minimum. And the reason we put 10,000 is not because we are Chim or Atas. We're not trying to take away opportunities to people who don't have the money. But the reason we do it is because we really want to make a difference in your life. $10,000 in Singapore across your CPF, your SRS, and all your cash savings is achievable. And if you don't have $10,000 by the time you retire, is 10,000 really going to make a difference to your life?
Sure.
So we are trying to make a difference in your life to prepare for your financial future, to secure your financial future. We don't want $10,000 in your account. We want you to have millions, 5 million, 4 million, 1 million in your CPF. We want, hundreds of thousands in your SRS and hundreds of thousands or millions in your cash. But we want you to start with 10,000 across all those sorts of funds. For those of you who are young, starting out in your career or students, then we understand. So come to us, please, below the YouTube, there is a link to reach out to our MAS licensed representatives who will guide you. If you can give us a commitment to reach 10,000, that's your first hurdle. If you can reach hundreds of thousands, then even better. Not because it benefits us, but because it benefits you and it secures your financial future. So please be serious with your money. Start investing it well. You know, top up your essays, invest your CPF well, so that you can secure your future.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we just answered one or two more questions.
I think we're way over time.
Okay.
But there's so many questions, so we don't want to like leave it hanging. So
Sure.
Thank you for your questions, but apologies, we may not be able to answer all of it. Please go back to Lou's Telegram group. Please join us for our next webinar for me and Endowus, and we'll continue to answer questions. Reach out to our MAS licensed reps as well.
Okay.
But maybe one last question for
I think
to wrap
there's a
up.
question on old folks, right?
Yes.
If they reach 60 over years old, what should they do, right? Should you invest in their money in the, you know, whatever, they have maxed out their FRS and things like that. Now, there is this thing called the retirement account. The retirement account is set up when you hit 55 years old. The CPF actually will transfer the entire FRS of $181,000 into a retirement account. And you could top it up to $271,000, okay? So by the time at $270,000 at 55 years old, you fill it up, it will compound all the way to 65, 70 years old when you start this giving you money in the form of CPF Life. I've said CPF Life, very complicated, okay? So in short, you could fill it up to $271,000, and by the time you reach 65 to 70 years old, where you can start taking money from your CPF Life, it'll be some big amounts that come down. So I think that's 4% return. So that kind of return you should not miss, okay? Now some of you say, but I want a hell of money I can access, but I think that's a best form of return that you should immediately go for. No, at 60 over years old, try not to take too much risk, okay? Try not to take much risk. You should start to enjoying, in fact, start to pare down your investments and start enjoying some cash slowly all the way down, you know. But most Singaporeans, most Asians like to have some thing to pass down to your kids and allocate some for that. But once you reach a certain age, please, you work your life in a very hardworking way, save as much money, time to spend some money, okay? Right? That's not time to be overly thrifty.
Yeah.
Okay.
With that, I think we apologize we weren't able to answer all of your questions. Thank you so much for your support and the amazing questions that you have. As I said, please follow up with Lou and his Telegram. Please join it.
Thank you.
You can just search 1M65. Go
Lou
into Telegram.
1M65.
Lou 1M65, and you'll be able to find it. You don't need the link, so please go there, sign up. There's a wonderful community that has, you know, been created, and everybody is, you know, participating to help each other altruistically without any agenda, which is amazing to see.
Yep.
I really want to thank Lou, my
Thanks,
dear friend.
Sam, for inviting me.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
And it was Lou's birthday recently. He turned 48. Now we're back to being the same age. But congratulations, happy
Thank you.
birthday.
Yeah.
And I really want to like thank Lou, because not just because, you know, being here to help Endowus and talk and share this time, but just, you know, his, you know, grace and efforts to help people of Singapore to, you know, prepare for their future better with their CPF. And Lou does this without any kind of, you know, gain. And we talk about this all the time. You know, what is the future for you with 1M65?
This is good enough for me.
Yeah. So we really want to thank Lou for his time and for his wonderful advice as well.
Thank you.
And it's great to have you here again.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. It's always a wonderful pleasure. And please take a look at Endowus S&P 500 products to get as bonds as possible. Okay. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Thank
you
you
for joining us.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.